What's up, guys? I'm Mitch Brown, part owner here at the Yard, more professional baseball player with the Cleveland Indians. I wanted to talk to you guys about my weight gaining journey. Freshman throwing 75 to a senior throwing 95 miles an hour out of high school. Guys, my first ever showcase, I was a freshman, about 160 pounds, growing in the mid 70s, topped out at 78, knowing that I was falling behind my competition. 4 years later, I was 205 pounds, topping out at 95 miles per hour. Here's how a hard gainer like me was able to put on 35 plus pounds, put myself in position to play professional baseball. Guys, to understand why this was such a big development piece for my career, you need to understand how weight affects your velocity. A lot of it comes down to the equation of mass times acceleration equals force. And so if I wanted to generate more force, half of that equation was going to be me becoming more massive. So we're training things like acceleration in the weight room, but if I don't have the mass to go behind that acceleration, my force is always going to be limited. Always a balancing act. If I'm so massive that I can't accelerate my body, that's not going to do me much good. But if I don't have enough mass, but I'm really good at accelerating, I'm also going to have limited returns on that force. So the struggle for me was that I was a hard gainer, and it didn't seem to matter what I ate, what time I ate. I was having a hard time. And guys, I even went to the lengths to take baked potatoes, warm them up in the microwave, nuke them, bring them to school, had them in a coat pocket, and eat them between class periods. I was trying everything I could to just try and get more calories in so that I could try and gain weight, but the scale just was not budging. So I knew I had to do something different. What I was doing just simply was not working. So I had to follow these 3 simple steps that were non-negotiables in my program. Non-negotiable number 1, I had to get 0.8 grams of protein per pound of my current body weight. Through that program, I knew that protein was going to be an extremely important part of building up my body and building new muscle fiber. Without that, I was going to have a very hard time building lean tissue mass. 0.8 pounds of protein per pound of body weight was the key for me. So guys, the forms of protein that I was consuming came in a multitude of fashions. It was lean meats like chicken, eggs, and fish became part of my steak. Eggs gave me a really good way to add a little bit of fat into those protein intakes, as well as dairy products, cheese. Trying to get red meats in 2 to 3 times a week. Guys, non-negotiable number 2, I had to start tracking what I was eating. I was obviously not gaining weight because I was not consuming enough calories throughout the day. I needed to know how many calories I was actually consuming. So over the course of a week, I just tracked everything that I ate. I put it into a calorie tracking app. From there, I knew what I was actually eating. I needed to increase that number of calories, but first I needed to know how many calories I was currently eating so it would give me a mark to shoot for. So in order to make this calorie tracking effective, it was important for me to understand what the actual macros of the food I was eating were. If you're not familiar with macros, it's gonna be comprised of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. Each one of those macros is gonna have a different calorie density for different foods. Guys, what I found was I was eating mostly carbohydrates, which was able to kind of boost my energy, but I wasn't getting the calorie density that I needed. It was making me feel like I was eating a ton of calories, when in reality, I wasn't actually getting as many as I needed. Guys, non-negotiable number 3, and this one was the most important in my weight gaining journey, is that I had to create a goal for how many calories that I needed to eat, and from there create a plan for how to fill those calories throughout a 24-hour period. A huge step in this one for me was setting a subcategory of non-negotiable that I had to hit 1,000 calories before 9 o'clock in the morning. Now this was super important for me because typically I'm going to bed sleeping 8 hours. That's 8 hours that I'm consuming nothing. If I don't increase my calorie intake by 9 o'clock in the morning, that was gonna add an additional 4 hours to that 8. Now gone 12 hours consuming no calories or minimal calories at the very least. Now trying to pack in those extra calories on the back half of the day was gonna make it extremely challenging, if not impossible. Guys, the best part about tracking your calories is it gives you a feelings out of it. It's not, I feel like I ate a lot of food, therefore I ate a lot of food. It's, I know that I can look and see what I'm putting in my body, and now I know how to make adjustments in the future. So when I start to plateau, I can adjust those macros and then get back on track seeing results. Guys, a couple quick tips on this is you're gonna be setting a pretty rigid schedule on how you're eating. This is gonna force you to plan ahead. Planning your meals out ahead of time is gonna help you make much more sound decisions within your nutrition. Another thing you might have to think about is what are things that I can eat in mass quantities that I'm not gonna get tired of and they're not gonna upset my stomach. Eating super heavy foods that I can't work out on is gonna inhibit my workouts. It's not gonna do me a whole lot of good if I'm fueling my body with a bunch of junk that might be calorie dense, but it's not gonna help me perform when I go to my training sessions. Things that are super easy to digest, things like oatmeal, eggs, rice, consume mass amounts of calories without being sluggish. Guys, this whole program is predicated on discipline. It takes planning and preparation, but you also need to be disciplined to follow through with that plan and that preparation. Small things like setting timers on your phone for when I need to eat so you don't forget, planning ahead, bringing food with you to school, practice, to the gym, like wherever you're going. In order to do this, we need to make sure that we're planning ahead, we're staying prepared, and we're being accountable for those things. Freshman year, topping out at 78, going into my sophomore year, I was at about 180 pounds. So I put on about 20 pounds in one calendar year. Now that took me from mid-70s topping out at 78 to low 80s topping out at 85. Throughout the rest of that summer, you continue to work, you continue to follow your nutrition plan, you're knocking out your lifting, you're doing your development program. By the fall of my junior year was the first time that I hit 90 miles per hour. Into that year, that was going to be a big year for me to go ahead and play on the college circuit for that summer. Spring of my senior year, I was topping out at 95. Body weight was about 205 pounds. At this point, I knew that I was going to have an opportunity to get drafted, and I knew that the work I had done prior to that had put me in position to do so. It's going to be easier to gain weight at the beginning than it will be at the end. As I continue to gain weight, I might find that the 4,500 calorie threshold that I've set for a goal got me from 160 to 180. That might not be the same thing that's going to get me from 180 to 200. As I got into Pro Bowl, I got myself up to that 200 pound mark. Now it took me about 4 years to put on the last 10 pounds. That got me topping out at 98 miles per hour. Guys, it can be tempting to think that more is always better. And in reality, more isn't always better, but better is better. Setting goals, setting the plan, and then executing on that plan allows you to follow that system. You can always go back and revise it if you need to. Guys, start with small goals. 1 pound per week, add it up over weeks and months is gonna get you to where you wanna be. Stay planned, stay prepared, stay consistent. And if you need help, we've got a free PDF down in the description below. It's gonna give you information on how to track your macros, how to find a macro calculator, and how to set goals moving forward for you. And don't forget guys, come to the yard and get better.